I'm Ryan Romberg, pastor at Placentia Presbyterian Church, and this is Three for the Road. Three for the Road looks back at this week's sermon and talks about what we left out because of time limitations, further application, and we cover your questions too. Let's get started. Our passage this Sunday is what we call the parable of the sheep and the goats from Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. Okay, first, what did we leave out? Once again, a ton of things. If you haven't looked up Son of Man, that was also in this passage, I recommend you do it. You won't be sorry with what turns up in that search. The other thing is at the end of the passage, it looks like it's referring to hell. There's no word there in a sense that says hell, but the word punishment is there. One of the things I left out is this word in the Greek that we translate as punishment is really refers to a corrective discipline. So not like a final punishment, like you do something bad and you get like a punishment. It is actually the word used for a corrective discipline. Think about that for a sec when you read this parable from Matthew 25. The other bit we left out is some of the elements of sheep and goats in the ancient world, as well as this idea at the end of the parable that looks like it's talking about we get saved by the good works that we do. And I didn't want to go into that fully because I think most commentators would say that that's not quite what it's saying. It is Jesus speaking as a Hebrew prophet, the way Hebrew prophets did. And to think of Jesus saying that we are saved by what we do really smacks against a lot, not only of the New Testament, but actually also of the Old Testament as well. We can get into that in much more detail at another time. But those are some of the things we left out. Further application. So the clearest way this is asking us to apply to our lives is by asking the question, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? If it means that you're in a club with certain benefits that are given when you join that club, such as sort of social standing in our country or benefits after you die, like going to heaven, if that's what it's for, kind of the benefits, then I think we may need to reconsider what our vision is for being a Christian, because it doesn't seem to fit Jesus' vision. If our vision is more oriented around serving others, particularly the least, so the poor, the oppressed, those most vulnerable, if that's what our vision is, and doing that together as a community, then I think we are actually getting closer to what Jesus means when he thinks about those who love him and keep his commandments, this group that is associated as the sheep in the parable. Okay, your questions. The biggest question I got was on the end of the passage and what it said about what looks like hell. Now, if you remember, and this could take a long video to explain, so we'll try to do it briefly, but if you remember, the word hell is not a Greek or a Jewish word. It is, I believe, a German word that we translate into English. And it is used to translate a few different words in the Bible. All of those have different sorts of meanings and ideas wrapped up into them. So it's a little sloppy just to call this idea or place, if you will, hell. So when Jesus is speaking in this parable, he uses none of those words. He says, he mentions the fire, and he mentions eternal punishment in our English translations. This word eternal punishment, you can say a few different things about. One is the word punishment is not the idea of kind of a final punishment for your actions. It is a Greek word that means corrective discipline. So discipline that's meant to correct, which could change the way how you see what Jesus is saying here. The other thing is this word eternal. It is a very loaded word. You see it, eternal life, eternal this, eternal that. Everlasting is also a translation of it. This word means a quantity of time, absolutely, but its main emphasis is on quality. So when it talks about the everlasting life, it is talking about an age, which is the literal translation of this word, an age to come that is characterized by life. Now, we can think of that as eternity in terms of time, like forever, but that's not quite the emphasis of the word itself. That would be putting on it something that it didn't mean to hold. So there's kind of this idea at the end of the passage of everlasting life and everlasting punishment. I hope that these two ideas here help you change kind of how you see that, not to say that there's not a life with God after we die, but the point is not that Jesus is trying to say. The point is not that that is what our goal is. The point is we can have life of the age, which is the literal translation, or age-long life, here and now, not just after we die. That's 3 for the road this week. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out on our PPC text line. Until next week, thanks for joining us.